Right on, writers. Welcome back to the Books by Adrian author platform. This is Typewriters Podcast, where we do a bit of a debrief with our guest from Livestream Sunday this week. Our guest today is going to be Lauren Sefchik. She'll be out in just a moment. I am your host, Adrian Santiago. If this is your first time with us, go ahead and consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps us out with the algorithm and all that good stuff. All a bunch of math that we don't want to do, as Lauren has taught us this week. Math is your enemy. So like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff downstairs. Links are all downstairs for everything that you might want from me or our awesome guest today. And I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get her out here. Miss Lauren Sefchik. Hello.
Hello.
Hello again. Welcome. Thank you for doing Livestream Sunday. That was fun.
That was so fun. That was great. I had a blast. And of course, my bestie in there was just my greatest cheerleader. I love every moment of her.
That's what it's all about, man. Just helping each other out, lifting each other up. That's all I ask, man. Just be nice to each other. It's awesome.
She's like, free chance to scream at you and other people? Pff, yes.
Sold. Say less, as the kids say these days.
Right? Oh, man.
So I'm very, very happy because that's 3 weeks in a row where our guest has been lovely and energetic and full of information and wonderful stories. And we appreciate you taking your time to be with us and meet with us and talk with us. On this show, we tend to get a little bit more into the craft of things. And so most of what we'll be talking today about is actually how we actually do the thing that we do, the writing, and all that goes into it. You mentioned already in Livestream Sunday that music plays a really big part in it. You're listening to music while you're plotting. You're listening to music while you're writing. Sometimes you put something on repeat because you want that scene to carry on that emotion. So it sounds like it all comes down to like what the music can emotionally impact into your story. What do you think that comes from for you? Like, what is it that connects music to story so vividly for you?
I think they're very integral. As far like they've always been very integral as far as how they connect to one another, not only just by, me, but everyone else. Like so many writers and so many creators use music to everything. I mean, even on social media platforms where you're seeing like TikToks and things like that, like all these trendy ones, everything is done to music. Like music set, I think like music is almost like, it speaks to the heart and soul of an individual. And it's kind of a language all of its own. Like lyrics aside, music is its own language in and of itself.
A universal.
It's universal. Yeah. It's something that everyone can enjoy, even if the music has no lyrics. Even if the music has lyrics that in a language we don't understand, the point is that it can still speak to us in different ways. And so it's definitely that, just like math, the bane of our existence. It's a universal language that everyone understands.
I was gonna say the sad truth about it is that music is math, and that's the heartbreaking part of it. Is that It's why I'm not better at it.
It's why I'm not a musical composer.
Yeah,
that's a different skill altogether.
Yeah. Way too much math involved. Yeah, if we can just do away with all the arithmetic, I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, we're homeschooling our kids, so I have to teach my kid math, and it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm gonna teach it to you, but eventually, like, you're just gonna use a calculator. But like, I want you to know that. Like, it's gonna be on your phone, it's gonna be on your computer, it's gonna be on your watch. Like, you're just gonna use a calculator.
And then, like, especially when I was, and really setting my age, when I was like in high school and stuff like that, that's when they rolled out what we used to joke about back then, the new math, where the concept, like they gave you a problem to solve, and then you had to do like all this long form material, and the point was not whether or not you got the right answer. The point was whether you did the process correctly. And it made no sense. It's like, well, if you get the wrong answer, what difference does it make if I did the process correctly? And then you have, first off, it makes it unnecessarily complicated, all right? Because there were more efficient ways to get a math problem or an answer to a math problem. Yeah. And then there were other kids that literally would just, do the more efficient one, or just do it in their head, write down the correct answer, but then they would still fail. But because even though they got the right answer, they didn't do the process. And so you got docked points for that. So yeah, that just made it over. That just I think that really failed us in, if I had like, and I'm not even saying public education, like that was like a, everyone
It's
was
across the
doing it
board.
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And I think when you make things unnecessarily bloated for no reason whatsoever, like that failed us on a lot of different, it failed me, and I was already struggling with arithmetic or just math in general. So
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to get into the sciences. I actually wanted to get into virology. I wanted to work on the Ebola virus, and because I couldn't do calculus to save my life, that like shut me out of the sciences right out the gate.
I have a similar story, but it's not quite as intense. See, I wanted to be a marine biologist when I was a kid, and then I found out that you're at sea sometimes for months at a time, and so most of what you eat is fish, and I'm not a big fan of eating fish. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to pass on being the next Jacques Cousteau, and instead just stick to my chicken and my beef. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, like when I was in my biology class, we did do like a genetics segment in school, and I loved it. Like,
Yeah.
now I couldn't do the mathematical equation of what would be the odds of getting brown eyes over blue or what have you. But then I could draw the double helix and then give you the answer. So it was like I could still do it, I could still get to it, but not in the normal
Not the way
methodology.
they wanted you. Yeah.
Yeah, I literally had to draw it out so I could visualize the probability process and then make a visual determination from there, because that's how my brain works.
Yeah, I could always figure out the squares, the 4 squares with that. Like I can figure out how, out of 4 kids, how many are going to be blue-eyed and whatever. But you want an actual equation, no hard pass.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tear up a Sudoku puzzle. I love logic puzzles. I'll chew through those things all day long. Nom 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 nom. But yeah, like just algebra killed me. Geometry killed me worse, because like they're like, well, it's all visual. I go, yeah, but it doesn't mean anything. They're just giving you a shape, but it doesn't actually have a standard size. Like I can't compare it to the next circle right next to it and do a scale comparison, because they're telling me this same exact circle is a different diameter than the next one that's the same exact circle, because in the end, the visual has no meaning.
Yeah.
it's whatever value they give to it. So it doesn't help me.
I feel like we've gone down a bad road on this podcast already. We started out and we went straight down the geometry wormhole. Let's dig ourselves out of that real quick.
Yeah. Solve for X. They're never coming back.
No, I don't want to solve for X. I don't. Those days are behind me. No more solving for X.
Okay, I'm sorry. I tangent squirrels all over the place. I apologize.
No, not at all. You're doing great. How does math play into your writing process?
Right, right? Like the mages are,
Do they have like levels and stuff? Does it amplify their power? Are you doing that kind of like scale thing with them? Like what's going on there?
Well, like
since we're on this topic,
going back to the magic system, and specifically the mage class, because their set of rules does not apply to any other class. It's explicitly them. So in the mage class, you have basically the casters can do 3 different elements: fire, lightning, ice. Okay. And then, so you've got that as your baseline. And then from there, you can specialize. You can be an elementalist, which is all your support-based skills, your heals and stuff like that. You have your battle magi, which is like all your spells are cast upon you to amplify your physical attributes. And then you have your arcanist specialization, where you cast your element really, really big. And so basically what happens is that a mage is attuned to a specific element, and then from there, so they can only cast their element. But they can cast all the spells from that domain. However, depending on where they're attuned in the specific domain, those spells don't take nearly as big of a toll on their bodies as the others do. So, somewhat spoilery, so people want to maybe skip ahead about a minute. One particular character, Colin, is an ice mage, but he's an elementalist. He's support. In the book, he doesn't cast one support spell. He does cast one on him at one point, but his entire shtick does not. He never casts within his attunement in that specific situation. So you're constantly seeing him reach the Hemofather stage, where his colleagues are telling him to stop doing that. Otherwise, bad things are going to happen. So spoiler over. But that's an example, that's
Yeah.
an extreme example of a character in play. And there is no mathematical equivalent that I do for it. I kind of just like, that's where the soft elements come in. Like the hard magic system is, okay, you're a mage. You can only cast between these three elements, and you use, arithmancy, and, you like for best results that are least death inducing, you want to say the spell in full, like fully incant it. If you can, you want to use charms and different bracers that help add extra magic sources, so that way you're not using 100% of your life force all the time, which is sapping you of, which is why mages age faster in this world than most people. You start seeing the elements of that, and things of that nature. Basically, when I did each different class, you always have that question of, well, if they can do all this magic casting and stuff, why don't they just blow up the world and take over it? Other than
Right.
for moral reason, what is stopping them, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these were my extreme checks and balances. So in the case of mages, it's literally tapping their life source. If they go too far too fast, they'll burn out and become no more. So
Consequences.
exactly. And then there's others where I do have, it's not in this book, and I believe one will show up later in the series, depending on whether they are a necessary entry or not. The summoners class, there's only 21 of them in the world. That is it. And they, like the warlock, class skill, whatever, they're taboo. They are hunted. So they don't want to go around telling people that they are what they are. And they definitely don't want to be flashy.
Are there only that many right now, or are there only that many ever?
Period. Because a particular deity created 21 creatures in the pantheons. And so there's only 21 creatures to summon from, and each creature bonds to their summoner. And each summoner is blood tied related in some way to the original deity, or in this case, the deity is like a demon lord kind of thing. So they're not from a good sector of the pantheon.
Yeah, that sounds like, yeah, it doesn't sound like
these creatures are really cool. You can do a lot of cool things with them, and just because the summoner themselves isn't good or evil or anywhere in between, but because of the history behind them and how these creatures were crafted and bound to these bloodlines and the ancient history, that kind of thing, they are definitely a taboo in this world. They're a taboo among the other deities, and so like other deities want to take them out too. So it's just one of those things where it's not beneficial to go flashing yourself around, because you're gonna get unlifed real quick.
Yeah. See, in mine, it's a sci-fi fantasy world. We're mostly taking place in this first story in a very sci-fi environment. So the fantasy or the magical elements are very kind of few and far between, and will grow to be more so in the sequels. Mm-hmm. But I'm going for that kind of soft magic system, because as much as I love the hard magic systems, the RPG magic systems, where there are these very hard and fast rules and even like numerical values to these powers and stuff like that, I always enjoy the more soft magic systems for myself in reading, and therefore in writing, because it gives me more room to imagine, and fill in those in-betweens. Whereas in the other one, I'm more bogged down with the detail.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, should this character be able to do this? Does he have all the things that he needs? Is this justified? Did he give as much as he needed to give in order to be able to do that? And I'm too concerned in the details to enjoy the story.
Yeah.
And so that's why things like Lord of the Rings work for me, and The Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin, work for me, because despite their hyper detail in the world, their magic is very vague. And it still makes sense, and there are still rules, and they know them, but they don't need to like drill us with them and as long as they're consistent, it will always like play well for us as the reader. So that's kind of what I'm going for with mine. It's so interesting, these two like flavors, right,
Hmm.
of the magic system of fantasy, and how you can enjoy these two very, very different kinds of magic. The Harry Potter fans are not exactly the Lord of the Rings fans, and vice versa.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, I would have to say that my stuff is basically, like I said, a hard foundation, but with all the soft on top of that. So,
I like
I
it.
mean, that way it's like, okay, so at least each caster class has an identity through the
Mm,
hard foundation, but then all the soft parts lets each individual character have individualized challenges and structures to overcome, and it gives me the flexibility to do, to go beyond what just the hard line rules are. And then, like there's other, like there's, I mean, fairy tale things, like fairy tales, and for example, The Last Unicorn. Okay, the magic in that world, totally soft, nothing makes any sense. They There is an established rule that the older the creature in time is, the more powerful they are. But even in the end, like the Red Bull was supposed to be like the most powerful, as it is the oldest of the oldest.
yeah.
But like, then the Amalthea has like a Care Bear stare moment at the end, and all of that means nothing. So, so
Yeah, you can go a little too far in the software. I completely agree. If it gets to the point where and the whole that particular magic system where the older you are, the more powerful you are, has always bugged me and always like irked me a little bit, because you can't gauge that necessarily.
yeah.
It's telling you that there's a gauge, but making it impossible to gauge. You know what I mean? So it's just like you're trying to be a hard magic system, but getting away with it doing a soft magic system, and I don't doesn't that compute?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, like, I mean, the thing is that that one rule that I found, if there's any to be found, um like it tracks when Amalthea goes up against the Harpy Solano. Like she doesn't tangle directly with the Harpy. They just find a way out. But then, like I said, at the end, the final fight with the Red Bull, it's just the unicorn against the Red Bull, and the Red Bull's supposed to be older and therefore more powerful. And I mean, at that point, when you're going with a rule of that kind of
Yeah,
simplicity,
yeah.
then when you basically just outright break the rule and it means nothing at the end, it's kind of like, well, why was the rule kind of established in the first place, kind of
And I
thing.
get it that they're trying to say, oh no, but this hero is so heroic and so,
Yeah.
their willpower is so strong that they were able to overcome a stronger opponent. And I'm like, yeah, but that's literally against the rules that you set up.
Yeah, like, I mean, I get that it was
It doesn't
supposed to be
achieve what
like,
you think it achieves. Yeah.
yeah, the unicorn learns to, I guess, love Prince Lear. Like, the male characters in the actual book are completely insufferable. Prince Lear is a total simp for the unicorn, like
I
right out the
haven't
gate,
read
and
it,
she
I
wants
must admit.
nothing to do with him. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, because that's
I
what
have.
everyone remembers.
I
Like,
have.
I love the movie. I read the book, and it felt like an LSD fever dream. And it probably was,
Isn't
given
that
the era
interesting
in
though?
which it was written.
Isn't that interesting though? How like you prefer the adaptation versus the original, and most people are like, "Oh, the book is better than the movie." It's not always the case. Sometimes, like, they made changes to the film that made sense for the film, and that led to you enjoying the story more than you did the book.
Yeah, like Schmendrick is way more lovable in the movie. In the book, he's very jealous and he gets spiteful. The only reason why he helps the unicorn is because he wants something, like he wants like to be
Mm.
close to her, like to be the more important individual between, if it's between him or Molly Grew. And so when Molly Grew comes into the thing, like her and the unicorn share a closer bond.
Mm.
And Schmendrick wants nothing to do with that. Like he gets very insufferable. And yeah, so it's just like, I like the movie adaptation. If nothing else, the men are more tolerable to deal with.
You got to take the wins where they come.
Yeah. Okay, I scrolled on us again.
All right, so process wise,
Mhm.
plotter, pantser, architect, gardener, where do you stand?
Definitely. I think definitely like an architect slash gardener. Like I build. By the time I'm getting to the point where I'm writing the first draft, the whole thing is already sequenced in my head,
Mm.
and it comes from like months of listening to different type of music, kind of my brain putting together music videos to knock out scenes and to get the right vibes and to and my brain is constantly sequencing things out on its own. So I spend most of the time on the plotting portion in my own head before anything actually gets to paper or to the screen or anything like that. So usually when I'm sitting down to write the draft, everything is there. The pieces are there. I just need to go and do the thing at this point. So yeah, definitely more of the gardener type. But yeah, like I give myself enough breathing room to have the characters do what they need to do, just as long as the chapter achieves a goal. And does this sometimes veer off course? Yeah, but then I go back, I refurbish the outline a little bit to take the change into account, and then I can, I always have a roadmap, and
We're
it's
similar in that, yeah.
yeah. As long as the end destination is there, how we go about it doesn't always have to stick to the first outline. It has room to breathe. I give myself that opportunity to change course where necessary.
I'm going to add the following question to my list of questions to ask everybody from here on out, because this past week, I've mentioned that I'm in the editing phase of my manuscript, and there was a chapter that I had to rewrite from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing didn't work, and I needed to rewrite the whole thing. And it is about halfway done right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the best thing I've ever written.
Yay! That's so good.
Yay! But also, it's the rest of the book. Like now, I'm fighting this urge to rewrite the entire book.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Because now there's a chapter in it that, in my mind, stands above the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you ever struggle with that? Like, do you ever write something and go, "Damn it! Like now I got to rewrite this whole book because this is so good, the rest needs to come up to its level"?
So here's the thing. I have a weird set of training. I did mention in the live stream that I have done play-by-post role-playing games. I've done them for decades, where I don't know if you're familiar with it. It used to be in olden times. It used to be like on message boards or chat rooms or things like that.
Back in yesteryear.
Back during the AOL chat room era, where you were on dial-up and everyone knows the dial-up sound by heart, where us elder millennials twitch a little every time.
Yeah. The closest thing to it is the fax noise that a fax machine makes, and it still like gives me like when I'm at work and I have to fax something, I'm like,
who faxes anything anymore? But I have been doing those since I was just coming out of since high school. So that's a long time. I'm not going to calculate out how long that is.
I wouldn't ask you to. I know better than to ask a lady how old she is.
I think my hobbies pretty much speak for themselves where I date stamp. But like, I do mostly the forum-based ones where you're writing text and you're with a group of people, everyone builds a world, sets rules, and then you're just writing back and forth to one another as these characters you decide to portray. Over that time, you work with so many different players. Everyone has their own agendas. You get toxic elements in there and you learn how to deal with it. Like everyone wants to be the chef in the kitchen kind of things. And so over the years, I have learned to be thrown so many monkey wrenches that basically whenever I go into a story, I typically have several backup plans. Like, that's why I say whenever something veers off course, I'm just like, okay, so then it changes this, and this. And so if it changes something in the back, I just write myself a little note for when I do the editing phase going, okay, this needs to adjust. But then basically I'll take a moment of pause usually, and then I'll just think through it, and I'll just like, my brain will just start like a computer, just start throwing out all the different ways, all the different new avenues I can take, and whether or not the end result, like I start going through the story with the different end results and figure out which path is the one to take, as opposed to rewriting the whole book from the ground up again. So I basically take it as a, okay, this was a monkey wrench. How do I work with this going forward kind of thing? And I'm so used to that. Like, that is literally 20 plus years of writing process and experience of just, constantly being thrown random stuff and learning to work with what you're given. That, yeah, I don't personally end up running into that specific roadblock as a result.
It's a new one for me. But
Yeah.
it is my first novel, so we'll see how it goes.
Like, always, your first one is always going to be all of the, like, when you, like I said, it's the discovery of what your process is. And that's on every debut novel. And that's what
Yeah.
I learned that I was not a pantser, because then I literally just got stuck. And I couldn't, I'd work on it for a couple of months, and then I'd not work on it for 8 months, and then work back. Like I said, 40% took me 6 years. The other 60% took me 2 months.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely been there. In fact, the entire reason why I switched gears to this project is because I spent like almost 5, 6, God, maybe even close to 7 years on a different project that I never finished, because it just kind of like I was spinning my wheels on it, and it's a project where like there's a particular standard that I'm holding it up to, and I'm not there as a writer. And I had to, like, it took a while, but I had to come to terms with that myself, and be like, let me step aside from this thing that I need to be amazing, and instead focus on something a little more simple, a little more me, a little more, I can deal with a novel, instead of this graphic novel series that I wanted to do. So yeah, I feel that for sure. We talk a lot on this channel about imposter syndrome, and that's another thing that I always ask our guests. Do you struggle with that at all? How do you deal with it? Imposter syndrome and writer's block are the big two that every new writer wants to know about. So what do you think?
I am, again, weird. The imposter syndrome, I get it in little waves, but I don't tend to dwell on it because it's not productive to the cause, and so I just tend to ignore it. And like I said, like I do the MBTI thing, so it's my INTJ brain. Like, everything is already pre-processed in my head before I'm going down to things. I mean, I would have to say, like, am I as polished as like your George R.R. Martins, or am I as polished as whatever? I would say no.
Yeah, no one is.
I'm not that I'm a crap technical writer. And I know that, but that's what a professional editor can be hired to do, is to handle all that nonsense. I'm not super prosy. I've accepted that. Like, I'm more, I'm your popcorn flick type of writer. You go in, I'm here, I'm like your campfire storyteller. Like, you come in to just be told a fun story that you can either emotionally resonate with or have a lot of fun with, or just enjoy. Like, it'll have some serious moments, but but it'll have lighthearted moments, and it's just you're just meant to sit back and relax and kind of let the story take you for a ride, kind of thing. I don't really try to bog down in the details of like really trying to commit to sending a message kind of writer. And I think that's, and others are, and that's fantastic, but I've never been that type of writer. And so I think that's maybe where some of the imposter syndrome comes from, is that when you're reading the works of individuals who have that multi-layer messaging, like they're trying to make either this huge political statement through allegory or metaphor or whatever, and it's these like bestseller, high award type tier books, like I mean, that is fantastic. And if that's what you strive for, then obviously hone your craft for that, and just know that you're never going to be perfect the first time around. So just keep going, keep writing books, keep publishing, keep going. You will get there as long as you keep practicing to make progress. But if you're not that type of writer, then don't try to beat yourself up over something that's just not you and is not your style. Because there's readers too that they want meaty, in-depth reads like that. And then of course, then you've got others that are like, I just want popcorn material. Like, I just want to be able to sit down, decompress, and just read something that takes me off somewhere that I don't have to like overthink it all the time. And I think I'm kind of leaning more towards that, and I just accept that as a writer. And so, the few bouts of imposter syndrome that do sneak up on me every once in a while, that mainly come while I'm trying to sell my book to others or try to pitch my book to others. I just have to ignore it because it doesn't do me any good.
You're echoing a little bit of Garrett Robinson. I was blanking on his name. Garrett Robinson a couple of weeks ago was talking about that same thing, and finding your voice and all of that, and how, especially that first book, is that process of figuring out who you are as a writer, what you're like, what your process is like, and that self-awareness is priceless. I mean, self-awareness is at the end of the day what it's all about, because as long as you're not hurting anybody else, being yourself is the end goal. It's just to be yourself as openly as possible. And in this case, as a writer, as an author, know thyself, be thyself. You know what I mean? Like, it's, and since talking to him about that, and you kind of echoing the same thing, I'm thinking about myself as a writer and the kinds of stories that I write. And it's like, I read all of that like epic fantasy stuff, all of that like hyper detailed, very vivid world stuff, so that I can write the popcorn version of those things, as you refer to, the popcorn version, the one that like is a little more accessible to most, because it's not quite as detailed, but it has the room for all of that. All of that epicness is in there. You just kind of have to fill it in with your imagination.
And I mean, like, I'll there are certain like little messages that I like to put in there and stuff like that, and in the end, I'm just writing an experience for these characters, and they all come from different backgrounds. They have different challenges that they try to overcome. I'm not trying to pinpoint to any one particular message, because I like to let my readers figure out how the book touches them for an experience, how they picture the characters in their heads, how they experience the world, how one character's story specifically resonates them, because I have certain readers will come back and go, oh, did you write the character specifically like this? No, I didn't specifically go in for that, but if that message was good for you, all right, then that's what it is for you, and that's okay, just because, and that will always be a double-edged sword, because then, especially with me being computer paper colored, there may be something subconscious that I end up writing that ends up being a bad interpretation for someone else, that it's harmful for them.
Always a danger these days. Sure.
Yeah. And while it's never my intention to cause harm to anyone, there's so many people out in this world, everyone has so many different life experiences, that there will be at some point something I will write will cause harm, and in that particular instance, I'll always do what I can to do better, but in that case, then just don't read my book. I don't ever want to cause harm or danger or any type of trauma, or have anyone relive that in their own experiences. And so I mean, that the art form is a double-edged sword in all cases. So
you're putting yourself out there, it's very you feel exposed, and you're vulnerable, but that's part of the art. Every artist will tell you the same thing when they put out a painting. You're just kind of burying it all out there.
Someone sees a butterfly, another one sees like the apocalypse, like, and they're both gonna get pissed at you over it. And I went in going, I was drawing a flower, I don't know where you both are. Like, I'm not anywhere on either of these pages, I don't know where you got either of those results, but okay, I'll roll with it. Like, I mean, I never want to deny a person of their experiences with something, or a process, or a material. I always go in with the intention of trying to do no harm, but I know that that's not 100% a guarantee with whenever I write. World, we do our best. We do our best. We try.
Lauren, thank you so much for being on both shows today. This was
Thank you for
fantastic. You
having
were
me.
a wonderful guest. I can't wait to have you on again. And for everybody else who wants to know more about Miss Lauren Sefchik here, please click her links down in the description down below. Her website, her social media, it's all on there. You can buy her books through those links there. So go ahead and support Miss Sefchik with her series. I can't wait to read it. I'm sorry I haven't had time to read it yet, but it is on my list and I will
You
read it.
should see my TBR list. Like, I think I've got like 50 indie books that I promised people I would read, and I get through 12 a year. I am screwed.
Yeah,
Screwed.
we're all gonna die with to be read piles that are just like,
Just bury me in with the with my
it'll be,
books,
we'll figure it out in the afterlife. It'll be fine.
right?
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Like, comment, subscribe. Any questions for Miss Sefchik, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to forward them to her and everything. And as always, thank you for being here. Like, comment, subscribe. Right on, writers.